The frozen body of Marshall Tucker lay face down in the snowdrift outside the general store, 3 bullet holes in his back, and Emma Brennan knew her world had just shattered into 1,000 pieces the moment she saw the crowd gathering around him. She clutched her shawl tighter around her shoulders, her curvy frame trembling not from the bitter December cold that had swept into Pinos Altos, New Mexico unexpectedly, but from the realization that the only lawman in their small mountain town was dead, and whoever killed him might still be nearby. The year was 1884, and winter had arrived with a vengeance in the high-elevation settlement, blanketing everything in white just days before Christmas. Emma pushed through the crowd, her dark hair whipping in the wind as she tried to get a better look. At 23 years old, she had seen her share of violence in this rough mining town, but murder always sent a chill down her spine that had nothing to do with temperature. The miners and shopkeepers spoke in hushed, worried tones about who would protect them now, about the gang of outlaws rumored to be heading their way, about how vulnerable they all were without law and order. "Step back, everyone. Give him some respect." The deep voice cut through the murmuring crowd like a blade through butter. Emma turned to see a tall man in a dark coat and hat making his way forward, a silver star pinned to his chest that caught the weak winter sunlight. His jaw was set firm, his eyes a striking shade of blue-gray that seemed to take in everything at once. There was an authority in his bearing that made people instinctively obey. "Who are you?" someone called out. "Sheriff Ryder Quinn from Silver City." "I was riding through on my way to investigate some cattle rustling reports when I saw the commotion." He knelt beside the body, his movements careful and deliberate. Emma found herself staring at the way his broad shoulders filled out his coat, at the way his gloved hands examined the marshal with a gentleness that contradicted his stern expression. "This just happened within the hour," old Tom Warner said, wringing his hands. "We heard shots, came running, found him like this." Ryder stood, his full height impressive even among the crowd of miners and cowboys. He had to be well over 6 feet, Emma thought, watching him scan the faces around him. His gaze landed on her for just a moment, and something flickered in those cool eyes before he looked away. "Anyone see who did this?" Silence answered him. Emma bit her lip, wanting to help but having nothing to offer. She had been in her father's saddle shop when the shots rang out, and by the time she reached the street, the killer was long gone. "Town council will need to convene," Ryder said, his voice carrying authority. "You need temporary law enforcement until you can get a new marshal appointed." "I can stay a few days, but I have duties back in Silver City." Emma watched as several men nodded gratefully, relief washing over their weathered faces. The sheriff began organizing the scene, directing some men to carry the body to the undertaker, others to search for evidence in the snow. He moved with practiced efficiency, and Emma felt an unexpected flutter in her chest at his competence. She scolded herself internally. This was hardly the time for such thoughts. "Miss, you should head inside. Going to be a long, cold day out here." Ryder had appeared beside her without her noticing, and Emma jumped slightly at his proximity. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the shadow of stubble on his strong jaw, the small scar above his left eyebrow. He was perhaps 30, she guessed, with the kind of rugged handsomeness that came from years of hard living. "I was just trying to help," Emma said, lifting her chin. She was not some delicate flower to be ordered about, even if this man was the law. "Did you see anything?" His tone softened slightly, and she noticed the way his eyes tracked over her face, lingering perhaps a moment too long. "No, I was in my father's shop when it happened." Emma gestured down the street toward the saddle shop with its hand-painted sign. By the time I got here, there was just the marshal and the crowd. Ryder nodded, pulling a small notebook from his pocket and making a quick notation. Your father is the saddle maker, Edgar Brennan. Yes, best leather worker in the territory. Pride crept into Emma's voice. Her father had built his business from nothing after her mother died when Emma was just a girl, and together they had created a life in this remote mountain town. I will need to speak with him and everyone else on this street. Someone must have seen something. Ryder's breath misted in the cold air as he spoke. The temperature was dropping as afternoon approached, and more snow clouds were gathering over the peaks that surrounded Pinos Altos. Emma wrapped her arms around herself. He is in the shop now. I should get back and help him. We have orders to fill, of course. Ryder tipped his hat to her, a gesture that seemed both old-fashioned and courteous. I will come by later to take his statement. She turned to go, but his voice stopped her. Miss Brennan, be careful. Whoever did this might still be in town, and we do not know why the marshal was targeted. Emma nodded, a shiver running down her spine that had everything to do with fear and perhaps something else she did not want to examine too closely. She hurried back toward the shop, her boots crunching in the fresh snow. Behind her, she could hear Ryder giving orders to several men, his voice calm but commanding. There was something about him that made her feel both safe and nervous at the same time, a contradiction she did not quite understand. The saddle shop was warm when she entered, the wood stove crackling cheerfully. Her father looked up from the stirrup he was tooling, his weathered face creasing with concern. Emma, what is all the commotion about? Marshal Tucker is dead, shot in the back. Emma removed her shawl and hung it on the peg by the door. There is a sheriff from Silver City who happened to be passing through. He is investigating. Edgar Brennan set down his tools, his shoulders sagging. Tucker was a good man. Had a wife and daughter over in Socorro he was planning to visit for Christmas. He shook his head sadly. This world gets meaner every year. The sheriff will want to talk to you. He is questioning everyone on the street. Emma moved to the workbench where she had been cutting leather for a new saddle before the shots interrupted everything. But her hands felt unsteady, and she found herself staring out the window toward where Ryder still stood coordinating the investigation. Her father came to stand beside her, following her gaze. That the sheriff? Yes, Ryder Quinn from Silver City. Quinn. Her father rubbed his bearded chin thoughtfully. Heard of him. Reputation as a fair man but tough as they come. Cleaned up Silver City after the mine wars a few years back. Emma had not heard those stories, but they did not surprise her. There was something about Ryder that spoke of capability and strength, of a man who had faced down danger and come out standing. She wondered what his story was, what had brought him to law enforcement in this wild territory. The afternoon passed slowly as Emma and her father worked, but her mind kept wandering to the sheriff outside. She caught glimpses of him through the window, moving from building to building, talking to witnesses, examining the snow for tracks. He was thorough, she had to give him that. Around 4 o'clock, as the weak winter sun began its descent behind the mountains, the shop door opened and Ryder stepped inside, bringing a gust of cold air with him. Mr. Brennan, Sheriff Quinn, I need to ask you some questions about this morning. He removed his hat, revealing dark brown hair slightly disheveled from wearing it all day. His eyes found Emma immediately, and she felt heat rise to her cheeks despite the cold that still clung to him. Of course, Sheriff. Anything I can do to help. Edgar wiped his hands on his leather apron and gestured to a chair. Can I get you some coffee? Has to be frozen out there. That would be appreciated, thank you. Ryder sat, but Emma noticed how he positioned himself to keep the door in view, how his hand stayed near his gun. He was a man always aware of his surroundings, always ready. Emma poured coffee from the pot they kept warm on the stove, handing Ryder a tin cup. Their fingers brushed briefly in the exchange, and she felt a jolt of something electric pass between them. His eyes met hers, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then he nodded his thanks and she stepped back quickly, her heart beating faster than it should. The interview was straightforward. Her father had heard the shots but seen nothing, his view of the street blocked by a wagon that had been parked outside. Ryder made notes, asked follow-up questions, and seemed to be piecing together a timeline. When he finished with Edgar, he turned to Emma. "And you, Miss Brennan? You were here as well?" "Yes, working in the back room cutting leather. I heard the shots and ran outside, but by then there was already a crowd." Emma sat on a stool near the workbench, aware of how Ryder's gaze seemed to take in everything about her. She had never been comfortable with her fuller figure, the way her dresses hugged curves that society said should be more modest, but something in the way he looked at her made her feel seen rather than judged. "How long would you say it took you to reach the street?" His voice was professional, but there was a warmth underneath that had not been there when he questioned her father. "Maybe a minute. I had to put down my tools and get my shawl. It was already quite cold." Ryder nodded, making another note. "And you saw nothing unusual before the shots?" "No strangers in town, no arguments, nothing out of the ordinary." Emma thought back over her morning. She had opened the shop with her father at dawn, worked on orders, served 2 customers who came to pick up repaired tack. Nothing memorable. "No, Sheriff, just a normal morning until it was not." Something that might have been a smile touched the corner of his mouth. "That is how it usually goes, normal until it is not." He stood, replacing his hat. "Thank you both for your time. If you remember anything, even something that seems unimportant, come find me. I will be staying at the boarding house." Edgar walked him to the door. "Sheriff, what happens if you do not find who did this in a few days? You said you have to get back to Silver City." Ryder paused on the threshold, and Emma saw genuine concern cross his features. "The town council is sending for a new marshal from Santa Fe, but it will be weeks before he can get here. I will stay as long as I can, but ultimately Pino's Altos will need to look after itself. Maybe organize a volunteer watch, men taking turns keeping order. In this cold. And with Christmas coming," Edgar shook his head, "most folk just want to stay warm and celebrate the season with their families." "I understand, but murder does not take holidays, Mr. Brennan." Ryder's tone was grim. "I will do everything I can while I am here." After he left, Emma found herself standing at the window again, watching his broad-shouldered form make its way through the snow toward the boarding house. Her father came to stand beside her, and she felt his knowing gaze on her face. "He seems capable," Edgar said carefully. "Yes." Emma did not take her eyes off Ryder's retreating figure, and honorable, I suppose. "And you are staring at him like he is the first drink of water after crossing the desert." "Papa," Emma spun to face her father, her cheeks burning. "I am doing no such thing. I barely know the man." Edgar chuckled, the sound warm and teasing. "You are 23 years old, Emma. It is not a crime to notice a handsome man, especially one who is clearly taking notice of you as well." He was investigating a murder, not taking notice of anyone. But even as she said it, Emma remembered the way Ryder's eyes had lingered on her, the way his voice had softened when he spoke directly to her. Her father returned to his workbench, but Emma caught the smile playing at his lips. "Well, he will probably be around for a few days at least. Plenty of time for more investigating." Emma tried to focus on her work for the rest of the evening, but her thoughts kept drifting to the sheriff. There was something about him that called to her, something beyond his obvious physical appeal. Maybe it was the way he had taken charge when everyone else stood paralyzed with fear. Maybe it was the gentleness she sensed beneath his stern exterior. Or maybe it was simply that she had spent the last few years in Pino's altos watching her youth slip away while she worked in her father's shop. And Ryder represented something different, something exciting. That night, as Emma lay in her small bedroom above the shop, she could not sleep. The wind howled outside, driving snow against the windows, and somewhere in the darkness a killer walked free. She thought about Marshall Tucker, about his wife and daughter waiting for him in Socorro, about how quickly life could be stolen away. She thought about Ryder, alone in the boarding house, carrying the weight of this investigation on his shoulders. And she thought about herself, about the restlessness that had been growing in her chest for months now, the feeling that life was passing her by in this small mountain town. Morning came gray and cold, more snow falling steadily. Emma dressed quickly, braiding her long dark hair and wrapping herself in layers before heading downstairs to help her father open the shop. The street was nearly deserted, most people choosing to stay inside where it was warm. She was sweeping snow from the front step when she saw Ryder emerge from the boarding house across the way. He was dressed much as he had been yesterday, but this morning his jaw was freshly shaved, and she could see he had made an effort to look presentable, despite the rough conditions. He caught sight of her and changed direction, crossing the snowy street with long strides. "Good morning, Miss Brennan." He touched the brim of his hat, and Emma was struck again by how courteous he was, how his manners seemed from another era even in this rough territory. "Good morning, Sheriff." "Any progress on your investigation?" Emma leaned on her broom, aware that she probably looked disheveled from sleep and cold, wishing she had taken more care with her appearance. "Some. I found the spot where the shooter stood, in the alley beside the general store. Boot prints and 3 shell casings." Ryder gestured vaguely in that direction. "Also spoke to the telegram operator. Tucker sent a wire to Santa Fe 2 days ago requesting backup. Whatever he was dealing with, he knew it was serious." "Do you think it was the outlaw gang people have been talking about?" Emma had heard rumors in the shop, whispered conversations about the Delaney brothers who had been robbing stages and homesteads throughout the territory. Maybe, or maybe something else entirely. Ryder's expression was thoughtful, distant. "The problem with being a lawman in a place like this is there are too many possibilities and not enough answers." Emma found herself wanting to comfort him somehow, to ease the burden she could see weighing on him. "Would you like to come in for coffee?" "My father will be down soon, and we always make extra." Something warm flickered in his eyes. "I would like that, thank you." Inside the shop, Emma poured coffee and set out some cornbread left over from last night's dinner. Ryder sat at the same chair as before, but this morning without her father present, the atmosphere felt different, more intimate. Emma was acutely aware of being alone with him, of the way the morning light caught in his hair, of how his large hands wrapped around the small tin cup. "How long have you been a sheriff, if you do not mind my asking?" Emma sat across from him, her own cup warming her hands. 10 years, give or take. Started as a deputy in Texas after the war, worked my way up." There was a whole history in those few words, Emma sensed. The war had ended nearly 20 years ago, which meant Ryder must have been young when he fought. It explained the hardness she sometimes saw in his eyes, the way he carried himself like a man who had seen too much. "You like it, being the law?" Ryder considered the question, taking a sip of coffee. "I like the idea of it, making things right, protecting people who cannot protect themselves. The reality is messier. You cannot save everyone, cannot fix everything, but you try." "That sounds lonely," Emma said softly. His eyes met hers, and she saw surprise there, as if no one had ever said that to him before. "It can be. The job does not leave much room for other things." relationships, family, roots. You go where you are needed, stay until the job is done, then move on. Is that what you will do here? Move on when the job is done. That was the plan. But the way he said it, looking at her over his coffee cup, made Emma wonder if plans could change. Before she could respond, her father's footsteps sounded on the stairs and the moment passed. Edgar greeted Ryder warmly, and soon the two men were deep in conversation about the murder investigation and the town's security concerns. Emma busied herself with morning tasks, but she felt Ryder's gaze on her often, felt the awareness crackling between them like static before a lightning storm. Around mid-morning, a young boy came running into the shop, his face red from cold and exertion. "Sheriff Quinn, they need you at the Silver Bell Saloon. There is trouble." Ryder was on his feet immediately, his hand going to his gun. "What kind of trouble?" "Some men came in, strangers, and they are causing a ruckus. Pete the bartender thinks they might be part of that outlaw gang." The boy was breathless, excited by the drama. "Stay here," Ryder said, though Emma was not sure if he was talking to her or her father or both. Then he was out the door, moving fast despite the snow. Emma followed him to the threshold, her heart in her throat. She had only just met this man, but the thought of him walking into danger made her chest tight with fear. "Emma, stay inside." Her father's hand landed on her shoulder, firm but gentle. "I know, Papa, I just worry." She watched Ryder's figure disappear around the corner toward the saloon. He is the law, daughter. He knows what he is doing, but knowing that did not make Emma feel any better. She tried to return to work, tried to focus on the leather she was cutting, but her ears strained for sounds of trouble. Minutes crawled by like hours. Finally, she heard voices, and then Ryder appeared on the street leading 3 men in handcuffs. They were rough-looking characters, unshaven and surly, but they went quietly under Ryder's watchful eye. Emma rushed outside without thinking, relief flooding through her. "Sheriff, are you all right?" Ryder glanced at her, and something soft crossed his features. "I am fine, Miss Brennan. Just some drifters who had too much whiskey for breakfast. I am taking them to the jail to sleep it off." "We did not do nothing," one of the men protested, stumbling slightly in the snow. "Just having a drink. You pulled a knife on the bartender. That is assault." Ryder's tone was flat, brooking no argument. He continued past the shop, and Emma noticed the crowd gathering to watch. Word spread fast in a small town. She went back inside but found it impossible to concentrate. Her father worked quietly, not commenting on her obvious distraction. Around noon, Ryder returned, looking tired but satisfied. "Got them locked up. They are not the killers, just troublemakers passing through, but I sent their descriptions to Santa Fe in case they are wanted elsewhere." He accepted the coffee Emma offered him without being asked, and she realized they were falling into an easy rhythm, as if they had known each other longer than a single day. "You need to eat something," Emma said, noticing the hollows under his eyes. "When was your last real meal?" "Yesterday morning, I think. Been too busy." Without consulting her father, Emma went to the back room where they kept a small kitchen area. She had made stew the night before, thick with beef and vegetables, and she heated a generous portion over the stove. When she brought it out with fresh bread, Ryder looked at her as if she had offered him gold. "Miss Brennan, you do not need to do this." "Emma, please call me Emma." "And yes, I do. You cannot protect this town if you collapse from hunger." She set the bowl in front of him, their hands brushing again with that same electric awareness. "Emma." Her name in his deep voice did strange things to her insides. "Then you should call me Ryder. Seems only fair." Edgar watched this exchange with barely concealed amusement, but he said nothing. Ryder ate quickly, efficiently, and Emma found herself watching the way his throat worked when he swallowed, the way his eyes closed briefly in appreciation. She had never paid such close attention to a man eating before, had never found it fascinating. But everything about Ryder fascinated her. "That was excellent, thank you." He pushed the empty bowl away, looking more human than he had that morning. "You are a talented cook. It is just stew." But Emma felt pleased nonetheless. "Emma does not give herself enough credit," Edgar said, speaking up for the first time. "She is talented at many things. I could not run this shop without her." "I believe it." Ryder's eyes were on Emma again, and she felt herself blushing under his regard. "Your father is lucky to have you." The afternoon passed with Ryder coming and going, checking on his prisoners, continuing his investigation. Emma learned from the customers who came to the shop that he had been asking questions all over town, that he had inspected the scene of the marshal's death multiple times, that he was thorough almost to a fault. People seemed impressed by him, reassured by his presence. Emma understood the feeling. As the sun began to set, painting the snow-covered mountains in shades of orange and pink, her father announced he was heading to the evening council meeting to discuss the town's security situation. "You will be all right closing up alone?" he asked Emma. "Of course, Papa. I have done it before." After Edgar left, Emma busied herself with putting tools away and banking the fire in the stove. The shop felt different in the fading light, shadows gathering in the corners. She was just pulling on her shawl to head upstairs when the door opened and Ryder stepped inside. "Saw your father leaving. Thought I should check that you were all right here alone." His voice was casual, but Emma sensed concern underneath. "I am fine. I have stayed here alone many times." But she was glad he had come, more glad than she probably should be. Ryder moved further into the shop, his eyes scanning the space. "You and your father live upstairs." "Yes, it is just the two of us since my mother passed when I was young." Emma found herself wanting to share things with him, wanting him to know her story. "Papa built this business from nothing. He says leather working is in our blood, that his father was a saddle maker back in Ohio before coming west." "And you, is it in your blood too?" Ryder had stopped near her workbench, examining the half-finished saddle there. "I suppose so. I cannot imagine doing anything else, though sometimes I wonder what it would be like to leave this place, to see more of the world." The admission surprised her. She had never said that aloud before. "The world is not all it is made out to be," Ryder said, but his tone was gentle. "I have seen a lot of it, and most places are much the same. Same problems, same struggles, same people trying to get by. But at least you have seen it. I have never been more than a day's ride from Pino's Altos." Emma heard the wistfulness in her own voice and tried to shake it off. "I am sorry. I do not mean to complain. I have a good life here. There is nothing wrong with wanting more." Ryder turned to face her fully, and in the dim light his features seemed softer, more open. "You should not apologize for having dreams, Emma." The way he said her name, like it meant something, made her breath catch. They were standing closer than she had realized, close enough that she could see the stubble already growing back on his jaw, could smell leather and gunpowder and something uniquely him. Her heart hammered in her chest. "What do you dream of, Ryder?" The question came out barely above a whisper. His eyes searched her face and she saw conflict there, saw want warring with duty. "Right now, things I probably should not." The air between them felt charged, heavy with possibility. Emma knew she should step back, should maintain propriety, but she could not make herself move. She had never felt this pull toward another person, this need to close the distance and discover what might happen. Ryder raised his hand slowly, giving her time to protest, and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered on her cheek, warm despite the cold that always seemed to permeate everything in winter. "Emma, I should not be here alone with you. It is not proper." I do not care about proper, she heard herself say, and was shocked by her own boldness. Something flared in his eyes, hunger and need and restraint all mixed together. You should. Your reputation matters in a town like this. My reputation is secure. I am 23 years old, a shop girl who has never caused scandal or trouble. One conversation with the sheriff will not change that. Emma surprised herself with her directness, but something about Ryder made her want to be brave, to reach for what she wanted instead of always playing it safe. It is not just one conversation, though, is it? His thumb traced her cheekbone, and she felt the calluses there, the mark of a man who worked with his hands. I have been unable to stop thinking about you since I first saw you yesterday. That is dangerous for both of us. Why dangerous? Emma's voice was breathless now. Her entire world narrowed to his touch, his proximity. Because I am leaving. Because this thing between us has no future. Because you deserve better than a lawman who drifts from town to town with nothing to offer but an empty holster and a tired heart. Maybe you should let me decide what I deserve. Emma placed her hand over his where it still cupped her cheek. Maybe you are worth more than you think. Ryder made a sound low in his throat, something between a laugh and a groan. You are making this very difficult. Good. Emma was not sure where this boldness came from, but she felt alive in a way she never had before. I do not want to make it easy for you to dismiss what is happening here. Emma. Her name was a plea and a prayer. I cannot stay in Pino's Altos. My job, my life, is in Silver City. I know. But you are here now. She stepped closer, eliminating the last bit of distance between them. Cannot that be enough for now? She saw the moment his control broke, saw the decision in his eyes just before he lowered his head and kissed her. His lips were warm and firm, gentle but insistent, and Emma felt the world tilt on its axis. She had been kissed before, clumsy attempts by local boys that left her unmoved, but this was different. This was everything. Ryder's arms came around her, pulling her against his solid frame, and Emma melted into him. She felt the strength in his body, the barely contained power, but his hands on her were careful, reverent. The kiss deepened, and she opened to him, learning the taste of coffee and something sweeter underneath. Her hands found his shoulders, gripping the rough fabric of his coat, needing something to anchor her as sensation flooded through her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ryder rested his forehead against hers. We should not have done that. Probably not. But Emma was smiling, joy bubbling up inside her. Will you do it again anyway? He laughed, the sound genuine and warm, and Emma realized she had never heard him laugh before. You are dangerous, Emma Brennan, says the man with the gun. She was drunk on this feeling, on the newness of attraction and possibility. Kiss me again, Ryder. He did, slower this time but no less intense. Emma felt his hand spread across her back, felt how her curves fit against him, felt desired in a way she never had before. Her whole life she had been the practical one, the dutiful daughter, the girl who stayed home while others sought adventure. But in Ryder's arms, she felt transformed into someone bolder, someone willing to reach for happiness even if it was fleeting. The sound of voices outside made them spring apart. Ryder stepped back, his hand going instinctively to his gun before he realized there was no threat. Your father is returning. Emma smoothed her hair, her hands shaking slightly. Her lips felt swollen, her body humming with unfulfilled need. Will you come back tomorrow? I have to. The investigation. But his eyes said he would have come back anyway, job or no job. Good. Emma managed to appear composed just as her father opened the door, though her heart still raced. Edgar looked between them, his expression knowing but not disapproving. Sheriff. Emma. The council has asked if you might stay a full week while they wait for the new marshal, Edgar said to Ryder. They will pay you a temporary fee if you are willing. A week. Emma's heart soared at the thought of 7 more days with Ryder in town. I will need to send word to Silver City, but I can stay that long. Ryder's eyes found Emma's, and she saw promise there. Pino's Altos clearly needs the help. After Ryder left, Emma floated upstairs on a cloud of happiness. Her father followed more slowly, and when they were both in their small living quarters above the shop, he looked at her seriously. "Emma, I need to speak with you about the sheriff." Her happiness dimmed slightly. "Papa, I know what you are going to say. Do you? Because I think you do not." Edgar sat heavily in his chair by the fire. "I like Ryder Quinn. He seems honorable, capable, everything a lawman should be, but he is not staying here, daughter. In a week, maybe less, he will ride back to Silver City and his life there. You need to guard your heart. I know he is leaving." Emma sat across from her father, forcing herself to meet his worried gaze. "I am not foolish enough to think otherwise." "But Papa, I have spent my whole life being careful, being practical. Is it so wrong to want something more, even if it is only for a little while?" Edgar sighed, and she saw both love and concern in his weathered face. "It is not wrong to want, Emma. But wanting and having are different things, and the having can hurt when it is taken away. Maybe, but maybe some things are worth the hurt." Emma thought of Ryder's kiss, of the way she felt in his arms. "I am not a child anymore, Papa. I know what I am doing." "Do you?" "Because you are looking at that man like he hung the moon, and I have never seen you look at anyone that way before." Her father reached over and took her hand. "I just do not want to see you heartbroken when he leaves. If my heart breaks, it will heal. But if I do not take this chance, I will always wonder what might have been." Emma squeezed his hand. "Trust me, Papa. Trust that I am smart enough to protect myself." But later, lying in her small bed listening to the wind howl outside, Emma wondered if she was being smart at all. She had fallen for Ryder with a speed that should terrify her, had let him kiss her after knowing him barely 2 days, had already started imagining futures that could never exist. He was right that he had nothing to offer her, that his life was not one that left room for a wife and family. She knew all of this logically, but her heart, traitorous thing that it was, did not care about logic. The next morning dawned clear and cold, the storm having blown itself out during the night. Emma woke early, taking extra care with her appearance. She wore her best dress, deep blue wool that brought out her eyes, and arranged her hair in a way that was more flattering than her usual simple braid. When she came downstairs, her father raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Ryder appeared mid-morning, ostensibly to update them on the investigation. He had spent the evening interviewing the drifters he had arrested and checking with nearby ranches about any suspicious activity. No one had seen or heard anything useful, and the trail was growing colder. "I am starting to think whoever killed Tucker knew exactly what they were doing and had a clear escape planned," Ryder said, accepting the coffee Emma offered. His eyes tracked over her new dress, and she saw appreciation there that made her skin flush warm. This was not random or opportunistic. This was an execution. "But why?" Edgar asked. "Tucker was a good marshal, fair and honest. Who would want him dead?" "That is what I need to figure out. I went through his office last night looking at his recent cases. Most of it was minor stuff, drunk and disorderly, petty theft. But there was one file that was different. He had been investigating a land fraud scheme, something about forged deeds and stolen property." "Stolen property? Here in Pino's Altos?" Emma had never heard of such a thing in their small town. Not just here, all over Grant County. Someone has been buying up land cheap by claiming the current owners have invalid titles. Tucker had been looking into it, and according to his notes, he thought he was close to finding out who was behind it. Ryder's expression was grim. That is the kind of thing that gets lawmen killed. So you think whoever is running the fraud scheme had Tucker murdered to stop his investigation? Edgar looked troubled. It is the best lead I have. I sent a telegram to the territorial attorney in Santa Fe asking for information on recent land transfers. If I can find a pattern, maybe I can find the killer. Ryder drained his coffee and stood. In the meantime, I need to keep asking questions and hope someone knows something useful. Be careful, Emma said before she could stop herself. If these people killed once, they will do it again. Ryder's expression softened as he looked at her. I am always careful, part of the job. But he reached out and briefly squeezed her hand, a gesture hidden from her father's view by the angle of his body. Emma felt the warmth of his touch long after he left. The day passed slowly. Emma tried to work, tried to focus on the leather cutting and the customers who came and went, but her mind kept drifting to Ryder. She wondered where he was, what he was doing if he was thinking of her. It was foolish and girlish, and she scolded herself repeatedly, but it did no good. He had gotten under her skin. Late afternoon brought a surprise visitor. A woman Emma did not recognize entered the shop, elegantly dressed despite the rough conditions. She was perhaps 35, beautiful in a polished way that spoke of money and refinement. Her eyes scanned the space before landing on Emma. Is this the saddle shop of Edgar Brennan? Yes, madam. I am his daughter, Emma. Can I help you? Emma set aside the strap she was working on and approached the woman. I hope so. I need someone to train a horse I recently purchased. He is young and spirited, and I need him ready to ride properly. I heard your father is the best with animals in this region. The woman's voice was cultured, with an accent that suggested education back east. My father is quite skilled, yes, but we are leather workers, not horse trainers. Emma was confused by this request. Oh, I must have been misinformed then. The man who sold me the horse said the saddle maker in Pino's Altos could help. The woman looked genuinely disappointed. Do you know anyone who might train him? Before Emma could respond, her father emerged from the back room. I heard voices. Can I help you, madam? The woman repeated her request, and Edgar scratched his chin thoughtfully. We do not usually train horses, but I know someone who might help. There is a cowboy named Tommy Miller who works at the Rockingham Ranch about 5 miles north of here. He has a gift with difficult horses. I could send him a message if you like. That would be wonderful, thank you. The woman smiled, and Emma noticed how her eyes crinkled at the corners. I am staying at the boarding house while I conduct some business in the area. My name is Margaret Sutton. Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Sutton. Edgar shook her offered hand. I will get word to Tommy tomorrow. He should be able to help you. After the woman left, Emma felt a strange unease she could not quite name. There was something about Margaret Sutton that seemed off, though she could not pinpoint what. Maybe it was the expensive clothes in a rough mining town, or the way her eyes had assessed everything in the shop as if cataloging it. Emma mentioned her concerns to her father, but he just shrugged. Probably just a wealthy widow looking for an investment opportunity. Lots of people are buying land in the territory these days, hoping to strike it rich. He did not seem worried, so Emma tried to dismiss her unease. That evening, after they closed the shop, Emma was surprised to see Ryder approaching through the twilight. He looked tired, lines of strain visible around his eyes, but he still managed a small smile when he saw her. "Walk with me," he asked quietly. Emma glanced at her father, who nodded permission. She grabbed her shawl and joined Ryder in the street. The town was quiet, most people already inside for dinner and warmth. They walked in silence for a moment, their breath misting in the cold air. "Rough day," Emma ventured. "You could say that. I think I have talked to every person in Pino's Altos and no one knows anything useful." Ryder shoved his hands in his pockets, frustration evident in his posture. It is like the killer was a ghost, there one moment and gone the next. The land fraud scheme, still waiting on information from Santa Fe, could take days to get a response. He stopped walking and turned to face her. In the fading light, his eyes were shadowed but intense. "I did not come to talk about the investigation, though." Emma's heart skipped. "No, no, I came because I cannot stop thinking about you, because every moment I am not with you feels empty. Because in 2 days you have become the most important thing in my world, and that terrifies me." The words came out raw, honest. "I know I said I could not offer you anything, and that is still true, but I need you to know how I feel." Emma stepped closer, reaching up to cup his face. "I know how you feel because I feel it too. This connection between us, it is not logical or sensible, but it is real." "It is real," he agreed, turning his head to kiss her palm. "But real does not mean possible, Emma. I have 5 more days here and then I go back to Silver City." "I cannot change that, I know, and I am not asking you to." Emma took a deep breath, preparing to voice something she had been thinking about all day. "But what if I came with you?" Ryder's eyes widened. "What? What if I came to Silver City when you leave? I could find work there. We could see where this goes without the pressure of time running out." The idea had seemed perfect in her head, but saying it aloud made Emma realize how impulsive it sounded. "Emma, you cannot leave your father and the shop just like that. This is your life, your home." Ryder's voice was gentle but firm. "I will not let you upend everything for me." "Why not? What if I want to? What if I have been waiting for a reason to leave, to seek something more?" Emma heard the desperation in her own voice and tried to moderate it. "I am not a child, Ryder. I can make my own choices. I know you are not a child, but I am also not going to be the reason you run away from your responsibilities." He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "If you truly want to leave Pinos Altos, it should be because you have a plan, a future you are moving toward. Not because you are following a man you barely know." Emma knew he was right, but it did not make his words hurt any less. "So what do we do? Just pretend these feelings do not exist?" "No. We take what time we have and make the most of it. And then, when I leave, we both go back to our lives with the memory of something beautiful." Ryder's arms tightened around her. "I wish I could offer you more, Emma. You have no idea how much I wish that." They stood together in the gathering darkness, holding each other against the cold and the inevitable march of time. Emma felt tears prick her eyes but refused to let them fall. She had known from the start that this had an expiration date, had told her father she was prepared for that. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were very different things. "Can we pretend, just for now, that we have more than 5 days?" Emma asked, her voice muffled against his coat. "We can pretend." Ryder kissed the top of her head. "For now." They walked back to the shop slowly, neither wanting the moment to end. At the door, Ryder kissed her again, long and deep, pouring everything he could not say into the pressure of his lips. When they finally broke apart, Emma felt branded by his touch, claimed in a way that both thrilled and scared her. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "tomorrow, and every day until I have to leave." It was both a promise and a sentence. That night, Emma did not sleep well. She tossed and turned, caught between happiness and heartache, between the joy of what she had found and the pain of knowing it would end. She had told her father her heart would heal if it broke, but lying there in the darkness, she was no longer sure that was true. Ryder had touched something deep inside her, had awakened feelings she had never experienced. How did you heal from losing a piece of yourself? The next morning brought news that temporarily distracted Emma from her emotional turmoil. Tommy Miller, the cowboy who Edgar had mentioned to Margaret Sutton, arrived at the shop with a worried expression. "Mr. Brennan, I got your message about training a horse for some lady, but I need to talk to you about something else." Tommy was young, perhaps 25, with the weathered look of someone who spent his life outdoors. "There has been trouble at the Rockingham." "What kind of trouble?" Edgar set down his tools, giving Tommy his full attention. "Cattle rustling. Lost about 30 head over the past 3 nights. Boss is furious, says if the law does not do something, he will take matters into his own hands." Tommy twisted his hat in his hands nervously. "I know the marshal is dead, but I heard there is a sheriff from Silver City in town. Can you tell me where to find him?" "He is staying at the boarding house. Tommy, this is my daughter Emma. Emma, Tommy Miller." Edgar made the introductions quickly. "Pleased to meet you, miss." Tommy nodded politely to Emma. "I better go find that sheriff. Boss is talking about organizing a posse, and that never ends well." After Tommy left, Emma felt her earlier unease return. Cattle rustling, land fraud, murder. Something felt connected, though she could not figure out how. She mentioned her thoughts to her father, who looked thoughtful. "You might be right. Maybe it is all tied together somehow." "You should mention it to Ryder." Emma did not need to be told twice. She left her father to mind the shop and hurried to the boarding house, where she found Ryder just preparing to head out for the day. He looked surprised to see her, but pleased. "Emma, is something wrong?" She explained about Tommy Miller and her suspicions that the various crimes might be connected. Ryder listened intently, his sharp mind clearly working through the possibilities. "You might be onto something. Land fraud, murder, cattle rustling. Someone is making a big play in this area, and they are willing to kill to protect their operation." His expression turned grim. "I need to talk to this Tommy Miller. Can you show me where he is?" They found Tommy outside the general store, preparing to ride back to the Rockingham. Ryder introduced himself and asked detailed questions about the rustling. Emma stood nearby, watching Ryder work. He was thorough, patient, drawing out information that Tommy might not have realized was important. She could see why he was respected as a lawman. "One more thing," Tommy said as he prepared to mount his horse. "Boss said he saw a woman riding around the property last week. Looked like she was surveying the land. Thought it was strange since we do not get many lady visitors out that way. She was fancy dressed, not ranch folk." Emma and Ryder exchanged glances. "This woman, can you describe her?" Emma asked. Tommy shrugged. "Boss said she was maybe 35, pretty dark hair, looked like money." "Margaret Sutton," Emma breathed. "That has to be her." After Tommy rode off, Ryder looked at Emma with newfound respect. "Your instincts were right. This is all connected somehow, and that woman is in the middle of it. So what do we do?" Emma felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear. This was real danger, not just vague threats. "We do nothing. I am going to investigate Mrs. Sutton and see what I can find out." "You are going back to the shop where it is safe." Ryder's tone was firm, brooking no argument. "But I can help. She came to the shop, she might come back. I could learn things." "No, Emma, this is too dangerous. If she is involved in murder, I will not put you at risk." Ryder took her shoulders gently. "Please, I need to know you are safe." Emma wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle herself, but the genuine worry in his eyes stopped her. "Fine, but you better come tell me what you find out." "I will. I promise." He kissed her forehead, a brief touch that nonetheless sent warmth through her. "Now go. And be careful. If Mrs. Sutton comes to the shop again, be polite but do not engage with her beyond business." Emma nodded reluctantly and headed back to the shop. Her father looked relieved to see her return safely. "Did you find the sheriff?" "Yes. Papa, I think Margaret Sutton might be involved in the marshal's murder." Emma explained everything as she helped her father with the day's work. Edgar listened seriously, his expression growing more concerned. "If that is true, we need to be very careful. People who kill lawmen are not people to trifle with." He put down the awl he was holding and looked at Emma intently. "Promise me you will stay away from whatever Ryder is investigating." "He already made me promise that." Emma tried to sound annoyed but was secretly glad that both men cared enough to worry. The day dragged as Emma waited for Ryder to return with news. She jumped every time the shop door opened, expecting either him or Margaret Sutton. But it was only the usual customers, ranchers needing repairs, miners buying gloves and belts. Normal business in a town that suddenly felt much more dangerous. Evening arrived with still no sign of Ryder. Emma grew increasingly worried. What if he had confronted Margaret Sutton and something had gone wrong? What if whoever killed the marshal had struck again? She was about to close up the shop when the door burst open and Ryder strode in, his face flushed with cold and excitement. "I found it. The connection." He was breathing hard as if he had been running. "Margaret Sutton is not her real name. She is Margaret Delaney, sister to the Delaney brothers, the outlaw gang everyone has been talking about, and she is running the land fraud scheme." Emma's hand flew to her mouth. "How did you find out?" "I broke into her room at the boarding house while she was out. Found documents, maps of properties, forged deeds. She has been stealing land all over Grant County with her brother's help. They intimidate owners into selling cheap, and when that does not work, they forge papers to claim the land was never legally owned in the first place." Ryder paced the shop, energy radiating off him. "Tucker must have gotten too close, so they killed him." "So what now? You arrest her." Emma felt her heart racing. "I need to wait for her to return to the boarding house and then I will take her into custody. But I need help. The Delaney brothers could be nearby, and if they are, this could get messy." Ryder turned to Edgar. "Mr. Brennan, can you round up some men who can handle themselves? I need temporary deputies." "Of course. I will get Tom Warner and his sons and Pete from the saloon, good men all." Edgar was already reaching for his coat. "Wait." Emma grabbed her father's arm. "If there is going to be trouble, if the Delaney brothers are here, you could get hurt." "Emma, honey, this is our town. We have to protect it." Edgar kissed her forehead. "You stay here and bolt the door. Do not open it for anyone but me or the sheriff." Emma wanted to protest, but she knew it would do no good. Instead, she watched helplessly as her father and Ryder left together. The shop felt cavernous and dark after they were gone. She did as instructed, bolting the door and checking that all the windows were secure. Then she sat in her father's chair by the stove, waiting and praying. An hour passed. Then two. Emma heard nothing, which somehow made it worse. Her imagination ran wild with possibilities, each one more terrible than the last. She thought about Ryder facing armed outlaws, thought about her father in danger, and cursed her helplessness. Finally, just when she thought she might go mad from waiting, she heard voices outside. Emma rushed to the window and saw a group of men approaching. In the lead was Ryder, and he was pushing a handcuffed Margaret Sutton ahead of him. Her father was there too, looking disheveled but unharmed. Relief flooded through Emma so powerfully her knees went weak. She unbolted the door and flung it open. "Papa!" "I am fine, daughter. Everything is fine." Edgar pulled her into a fierce hug. The sheriff got his woman, and the Delaney brothers were nowhere to be found. Looks like they had already cleared out. Ryder had stopped on the street, keeping hold of Margaret Sutton. The woman looked furious but resigned. "I will come by later," he called to Emma. "Need to get her secured in the jail first." Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. She pulled her father inside and forced him to sit while she examined him for injuries. "Are you sure you are all right?" "Just tired and cold." "But we did good work tonight, Emma. We helped bring a criminal to justice." Her father smiled wearily. "That sheriff of yours is something special. I have never seen anyone move so fast or think so clearly under pressure. He is not my sheriff, Emma protested weakly, but her heart was not in it. Ryder was hers in every way that mattered, at least for a few more days. True to his word, Ryder appeared at the shop an hour later. Emma had been watching for him, and she flung open the door before he could knock. He looked exhausted but triumphant, and Emma threw her arms around him without thinking. "You are safe. Thank God you are safe." She buried her face in his chest, feeling his heart beat strong and steady. Ryder's arms came around her, holding her tight. "I am fine. It all went smoothly. Margaret Sutton, or Delaney rather, is locked up tight. I sent telegrams to every town in the territory warning them about her brothers. They will be caught eventually." Emma pulled back to look at him. "You could have been killed, but I was not, and neither was your father." Ryder cupped her face. "Emma, this is what I do. There is always danger, always risk. You need to understand that about me." "I do understand. That does not mean I have to like it." Emma covered his hands with hers. "When I thought you might be hurt, I realized something. 5 days is not enough. I do not care if it is impractical or foolish. I want more time with you." Something pained crossed Ryder's features. "Emma, no, listen. I know you have to go back to Silver City. I know your life is there, but maybe I could visit. Or you could come back to Pino's Altos when you have time off. We could find a way to make this work if we both wanted enough." Emma heard the desperation in her voice but could not stop herself. "Do you want it enough? You know I do, but wanting and being able are different things." Ryder looked over his shoulder to where Edgar sat pretending to work, clearly listening. "Can we talk about this outside?" They stepped into the cold night air, and Ryder led her around the side of the building where they would have some privacy. The moon was nearly full, casting silver light over the snow-covered street. It should have been beautiful, but Emma felt only dread. "I have thought about this from every angle," Ryder said quietly, "and I cannot see a way forward that does not end with one of us hurt. If you come to Silver City, you would have to leave your father and the business. Could you live with that?" "I do not know," Emma admitted, "but I know I do not want to lose you. And if I try to visit here regularly, I would be neglecting my duties as sheriff. People depend on me, Emma. I cannot just abandon them because my heart wants something else." Ryder took her hands. "The truth is, I am not set up for this, for a relationship, for love, for any of it. My life is my job, and my job does not leave room for much else." "So what are you saying?" Emma felt tears threatening. "That these past few days meant nothing. They meant everything. That is the problem." Ryder pulled her close. "You are the first woman who has made me want more, who has made me question the choices I made, but wanting more does not change reality. Reality can be changed if you are brave enough." Emma looked up at him, willing him to see what she saw, to believe what she believed. "People make it work all the time, Ryder. Lawmen have wives and families. You could have that too if you stopped pushing it away." "At what cost?" "At the cost of putting you in danger every day. Of leaving you alone while I chase outlaws and investigate crimes. Of giving you half a life while I give the other half to my badge." Ryder shook his head. "You deserve someone who can be there fully, Emma. Someone who will come home every night, who will build a life with you in one place. I cannot be that person. I do not want that person, I want you." But even as Emma said it, she felt the truth of his words settling over her like a shroud. He was right. She had been foolish to think they could overcome the obstacles between them. Geography was just the start. Their entire lives were incompatible. "I wish things were different," Ryder said softly. "I wish I had met you years ago, before I became so set in my ways. Or maybe in another life where I am not tied to a job that requires everything I have. But you did meet me now in this life. That has to mean something." Emma was pleading now, all pride gone. Does it not? It means I will remember you for the rest of my life. It means these few days will be what I think about when I am alone and wondering what might have been. Ryder kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. It means you have ruined me for anyone else, Emma Brennan. They stood together in the moonlight, holding each other as if they could stop time through sheer force of will. Emma felt something break inside her, the death of a hope she had barely allowed herself to have. But even in her grief, she could not regret knowing him, loving him. Because she did love him, she realized. She had fallen completely in love with Ryder Quinn in just a handful of days. "I love you," she whispered against his chest. "I know I should not say it. I know it only makes this harder, but I need you to know." Ryder's arms tightened almost painfully. "I love you too. God help me, I do." The admission hung between them, precious and painful. Emma had thought hearing those words would make everything better, but instead they just made the inevitable goodbye that much harder to bear. They went back inside eventually, both trying to compose themselves before facing Edgar. Her father took one look at their faces and sighed heavily. "So you worked out that you are both fools who are too stubborn for their own good, Papa," Emma protested. "No, he is right." Ryder managed a weak smile. "We are fools, but sometimes fools are the only people who see things clearly." "What are you talking about?" Edgar looked between them, confused. "I am saying I cannot ask Emma to give up her life for me, and she cannot ask me to give up mine for her. So we are at an impasse." Ryder spoke matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather rather than the end of everything. "It is for the best, for the best." Edgar stood, his expression incredulous. "You two are in love, anyone with eyes can see that. And you are just going to walk away from each other because it is convenient, not convenient, necessary." But Ryder's voice cracked slightly on the word, betraying his true feelings. Edgar shook his head in disgust. "You young people think everything has to be perfect or it is not worth having. Let me tell you something, Sheriff. Life is not perfect, love is not perfect, but you do not throw it away just because there are obstacles. You fight for it." "I cannot ask her to sacrifice everything," Ryder repeated. "Then do not ask, let her choose." Edgar turned to Emma. "Daughter, I am about to say something, and I want you to listen carefully. This shop, this business, it is not more important than your happiness. If you want to go to Silver City and try to build a life with this man, you have my blessing." Emma stared at her father in shock. "But the shop, you need me. I need you to be happy more than I need you to cut leather." Edgar came to her, taking her hands. "Emma, I have watched you become more restless every year, watched you look at the mountains as if they are walls keeping you trapped. Maybe this is your chance to spread your wings and see what is out there. But what about you? I cannot just abandon you." Emma felt torn in two, pulled between love for her father and love for Ryder. "You would not be abandoning me, you would be living your life." "That is what children are supposed to do." Edgar smiled, though Emma could see it cost him. "I can hire someone to help in the shop. It will not be the same, but I will manage." Emma looked at Ryder, hope rekindling in her chest. "Did you hear that? I could come to Silver City." Papa just gave his blessing, but Ryder's expression was tormented. "Emma, I still do not think this is a good idea." "Why not? You love me, I love you. My father is giving me permission to leave. What other obstacles are there?" Emma felt frustration building alongside her hope. 100 obstacles. 1,000. You would have to find work, find a place to live. You would be alone in a strange town while I am off doing my job. And what happens if it does not work out? You would have given up everything for a relationship that might not last. Ryder was clearly trying to be rational, but Emma could see the longing in his eyes. Or it might last. "You cannot predict the future, Ryder." Emma stepped closer to him. "Yes, there would be obstacles. Yes, it would be hard, but do you know what would be harder? spending the rest of my life wondering what if. She is right, Edgar said quietly. I learned that lesson when my wife died. We think we have all the time in the world, but we do not. You take happiness where you find it when you find it. Ryder looked between Emma and her father, and Emma could see the war playing out on his face. Duty warring with desire, logic battling emotion. She held her breath, waiting for his decision. Finally, he spoke. If you come to Silver City, it has to be for you, not for me. You need to want to be there for reasons beyond our relationship. Otherwise, when times get tough, and they will get tough, you will resent me for taking you away from here. I can live with that condition. Emma felt hope blooming fully now. I have been wanting to see more of the world, to try new things. Silver City could be my adventure with or without you, but I would much rather it be with you. A smile, genuine and warm, finally broke across Ryder's face. You are sure about this? I have never been more sure of anything. Emma was grinning now too, joy replacing the grief from just minutes before. Then I guess we are doing this. Ryder pulled her into his arms, spinning her around despite her father watching. When he set her down, he was laughing. You are crazy, Emma Brennan. Probably, but you love me anyway. Emma felt lighter than air, as if she might float away at any moment. I do. God help us both, I really do. Ryder kissed her, and it felt different than before. It felt like a beginning rather than an ending. Edgar cleared his throat loudly. I suppose I should mention that I expect you to marry my daughter properly, Sheriff. None of this living in sin business. Papa. Emma's face flamed red, but Ryder was nodding seriously. Of course, sir. I would not have it any other way. Emma deserves to be treated with respect and honor. Good. Then we understand each other. Edgar looked pleased. Now I think it is past time we all got some sleep. Tomorrow you can start making actual plans instead of mooning over each other. After Ryder left, Edgar pulled Emma into a fierce hug. Are you really sure about this, daughter? I meant what I said about my blessing, but I need to know you are choosing this for the right reasons. I am, Papa. I love him, yes, but I also want the adventure. I want to see what life is like outside Pinos Altos. And if it does not work out, if Silver City is not right for me, I can always come home, right? Emma looked up at her father, needing his reassurance. You can always come home. This will always be your home, no matter where you go or what you do. Edgar kissed the top of her head. I am proud of you, Emma, for being brave enough to reach for what you want. That night, Emma lay in bed feeling like the world had shifted on its axis. Just hours ago, she had been preparing for heartbreak, and now she was planning a future in Silver City with the man she loved. It seemed impossible, too good to be true. But it was real. She was really going to do this. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Ryder had to finish wrapping up the case against Margaret Delaney, which involved multiple telegrams to other lawmen and lengthy written reports. Emma began preparing for her move, sorting through her possessions and trying to decide what to take. Her father interviewed potential assistants for the shop, though none of them were quite right yet. The town was buzzing with gossip. Some people were scandalized that Emma was leaving to follow a man she had known less than a week. Others were romantic about it, calling it a fairy tale love story. Emma tried to ignore both camps and focus on the practical details of uprooting her entire life. 3 days before Ryder was scheduled to return to Silver City, something unexpected happened. Emma was helping her father in the shop when Tommy Miller rushed in, his face pale with fear. Miss Emma, Mr. Brennan, I need help. There has been an accident at the ranch. Tommy was out of breath, clearly having ridden hard. One of the hands got thrown by a horse and hit his head. He is conscious but not making sense. We need someone who knows medicine. Doc Henderson is over in Silver City doing rounds at the mines. He will not be back until tomorrow. Edgar looked worried. The next nearest doctor is in Sakuro, a full day's ride. What about you, Miss Emma? I know you used to help your mother with healing before she passed. Could you come look at him? Tommy was pleading now. I would not ask, but he is hurt bad and we do not know what to do. Emma had not practiced healing arts in years, not since her mother died and took her knowledge of herbs and remedies with her. But she remembered some things and she could not turn away a person in need. I will come. Let me get my supplies. She rushed upstairs to dig out her mother's old medicine kit, checking to make sure the herbs had not spoiled too much with age. When she came back down, her father was looking uncertain. Emma, are you sure about this? It has been a long time since you practiced healing. I know, Papa. But I have to try. Someone is hurt. Emma pulled on her warmest coat. The weather had turned bitter again, more snow threatening. Then I am coming with you. Edgar reached for his own coat. No, you should stay and mind the shop. I will be fine. Tommy will bring me back safely. Emma did not want to worry about her father out in the cold. At least tell the sheriff where you are going. Her father looked worried. There is not time. Tommy said the man needs help now. Emma squeezed her father's arm. I will be back by nightfall. Do not worry. She followed Tommy outside where 2 horses waited. He helped her mount, and they set off at a quick pace toward the Rockingham ranch. The wind bit at Emma's face, and she pulled her scarf up higher. Gray clouds rolled overhead, promising more snow. Thank you for coming, Miss Emma. Jake is a good man. We are all real worried about him. Tommy guided his horse expertly through the rough terrain. Tell me exactly what happened. Emma wanted as much information as possible before they arrived. He was breaking a new horse, a real mean one. The horse reared up and Jake went flying, hit his head on a post. He woke up after a minute, but he keeps saying strange things and he does not seem to know where he is. Tommy's face was creased with concern. I have seen head injuries before, and they can go bad real quick. Emma nodded, her mind already running through what she remembered of treating head trauma. Keep the patient still, check for bleeding, watch for signs of swelling in the brain. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, teaching her these lessons years ago. They rode hard for what felt like hours, but was probably closer to 45 minutes. The Rockingham ranch sprawled across a valley, its main house and outbuildings substantial and well-maintained. Several men waited anxiously in front of the bunkhouse, and they rushed forward when Tommy and Emma arrived. She is here. The healer is here, one of them called out. I am not really a healer, Emma corrected as Tommy helped her dismount, but I will do what I can. Inside the bunkhouse, a young man lay on a cot, his face pale and a nasty bruise forming on his temple. Emma knelt beside him, opening her medicine kit. Jake, can you hear me? The man's eyes opened, unfocused. Ma, is that you, Ma? No, Jake, I am Emma Brennan. You have been hurt. I am here to help. Emma gently examined his head, finding a large goose egg but thankfully no bleeding. His pupils were dilated but responsive. Good signs. She worked for over an hour, treating Jake with what herbs she had and giving instructions to the ranch hands about his care. He needed to be kept awake for the next several hours, needed to be monitored for signs of worsening. It was the best she could do without a real doctor. Will he be all right? Tommy asked anxiously. I think so. The next day will tell us for sure. If he starts vomiting or loses consciousness again, someone needs to ride for the doctor immediately. Emma repacked her kit, satisfied she had done everything possible. Thank you, Miss Emma. We will watch him close. Tommy looked relieved. Let me get you back to town before the storm hits. They walked outside to find that the threatening clouds had made good on their promise. Snow was falling steadily, already accumulating on the ground. Emma felt a prickle of worry. If this got worse, it could be dangerous. We should leave now, Tommy said, voicing her thoughts. This could turn into a real blizzard. They mounted up and headed back toward Pino's Altos, but within minutes, Emma realized they might be in trouble. The snow was falling harder now, the wind picking up and driving the flakes into her eyes. Visibility dropped rapidly, and she could barely see Tommy riding just ahead of her. "Tommy, maybe we should turn back," Emma called out, but the wind snatched her words away. What happened next seemed to occur in slow motion. Tommy's horse stumbled in the deepening snow, and Tommy fought to control him. Emma's own horse spooked at the sudden movement, rearing up. Emma clung to the saddle, but her cold fingers could not hold on. She felt herself falling, and then she hit the snow hard, the breath knocked out of her. "Miss Emma." Tommy was beside her in an instant, helping her up. "Are you hurt?" "I do not think so." Emma took stock of herself. Nothing broken, but she was thoroughly winded and covered in snow. "We need to keep moving." But when they looked around, Emma realized they had a serious problem. The storm had become a full whiteout, and she could not see more than a few feet in any direction. The landmarks that had guided them on the way to the ranch were invisible. They were lost. "I do not know which way is town," Tommy admitted, and Emma heard fear in his voice. "Everything looks the same." Emma felt panic rising but forced it down. Panic would not help. What about following our own tracks back, already covered by new snow? Tommy pulled his scarf higher. "We need shelter, Miss Emma. If we stay out in this, we will freeze. Is there anywhere close?" Emma had to shout now to be heard over the wind. "There is an old line shack maybe half a mile east if I can find it in this mess." Tommy squinted into the storm. "It is our best chance." They stumbled forward, leading the horses now since riding was too dangerous in the poor visibility. Emma quickly lost all sense of direction and time. Everything was white, cold, endless. Her face went numb, then her fingers, then her toes. She focused on putting one foot in front of the other, trusting Tommy to lead them to safety. Just when Emma thought she could not go any further, a dark shape loomed out of the whiteness. The line shack, small and ramshackle but beautiful to Emma's eyes. Tommy forced the door open, and they stumbled inside with the horses, all of them coated in snow and ice. The shack was barely more than 4 walls and a roof, with a small stone fireplace in one corner. But it was out of the wind, and that made all the difference. Tommy immediately set about making a fire with wood stacked against the wall, while Emma tended to the horses as best she could with numb hands. Once the fire was going and they had both warmed up slightly, Tommy looked at Emma apologetically. "I am sorry, Miss Emma. I should have turned back sooner. This is not your fault. We could not have predicted the storm would get this bad this fast." Emma tried to sound reassuring despite her own fear. They were safe for now, but how long would the storm last? Would anyone know where to look for them? "Your father must be real worried by now, and that sheriff of yours." Tommy fed more wood to the fire. "They will probably organize a search party. In this storm, that would be suicide." Emma huddled closer to the fire, trying to absorb its meager heat. "We will just have to wait it out." The hours crawled by. The storm showed no signs of abating, the wind howling like a living thing around their small shelter. Emma thought about Ryder, about how worried he must be. They were supposed to have dinner together tonight, were supposed to continue planning her move to Silver City. Instead, she was trapped in a line shack in the middle of nowhere. "Tell me about this sheriff," Tommy said, clearly trying to distract them both from their situation. "The whole town is talking about you two." Emma felt herself blush. "There is not much to tell. We met when he came to investigate the marshal's murder, and we sort of fell for each other." "Sort of," Tommy grinned. "Miss Emma, my boss says the sheriff looked at you like you were the sun and moon combined. That is more than sort of." "All right, fine. We fell completely for each other, and now I am moving to Silver City to see where it goes." Saying it out loud made it more real, made Emma smile despite their circumstances. They talked for a long time, sharing stories to pass the time and keep their spirits up. Tommy told her about his dreams of saving enough money to buy his own small ranch someday. Emma told him about her mother's death and how she had learned healing from her. The conversation helped, but as night fell and the storm continued to rage, Emma could not help worrying. Back in Pino's Altos, Ryder was indeed worried. When Emma had not returned by nightfall, he had gone immediately to the shop to ask Edgar where she was. Learning that she had ridden out to the Rockingham Ranch hours before the storm hit had sent cold fear through his veins. "I should have gone with her," Edgar said, his face gray with worry. "I should not have let her go alone." She was not alone. That cowboy was with her. But Ryder knew that did not make the situation much better. The storm was vicious and people could die in these conditions. "I am going after her. In this, you will never find them." Edgar grabbed Ryder's arm. "You will just get yourself killed. I cannot sit here and do nothing." Ryder pulled his arm free, already reaching for his coat. "Emma is out there somewhere, cold and scared. I have to at least try." "Then I am coming with you." Edgar's tone left no room for argument. Ryder wanted to refuse, but he knew he might need help. "Get dressed warm. We leave in 5 minutes." They were preparing to depart when someone banged on the shop door. Ryder opened it to find several ranch hands from the Rockingham, including the foreman, Sheriff Quinn. "We came to help search for Tommy and Miss Emma. Figured you would be organizing something." The foreman was a grizzled, older man with kind eyes. The more searchers, the better. Ryder felt a surge of gratitude. "But I have to warn you, this is dangerous. The storm is bad and getting worse." "We know, but Tommy is one of ours and Miss Emma came to help us. We do not leave our people behind." The foreman's jaw was set firm. Within minutes, they had organized into search parties, each group taking a different route between town and the ranch. Ryder insisted on leading one group himself, with Edgar stubbornly tagging along despite protests. They set out into the storm, lanterns barely making dents in the swirling snow. The search was brutal. Within 100 yards, Ryder could barely feel his face. The cold was savage, cutting through his layers of clothing like they were nothing. He called Emma's name until his throat was raw, but the wind threw his words back at him. Beside him, Edgar struggled through the deepening drifts, his breathing labored. "We need to turn back," one of the ranch hands shouted. "We cannot even see where we are going." Ryder wanted to refuse, wanted to keep searching until he found Emma, but he knew the man was right. This was suicide. "All right, but we head out again as soon as the storm breaks." They struggled back to town, all of them half frozen and discouraged. The other search parties had similarly found nothing. Emma and Tommy were somewhere out there in the storm, and there was nothing anyone could do until morning. Ryder spent the night in the shop with Edgar, both of them unable to sleep. They kept the fire stoked high and watched the storm continue its assault. Ryder had never felt so helpless in his life. He was the law, the protector, the man who solved problems. But against the fury of nature, his badge and gun were useless. "She is smart," Edgar said sometime in the dark hours before dawn. "She will find shelter. She will survive." Ryder wanted to believe him. "I should have gone with her to the ranch, or stopped her from going at all." "You could not have stopped her. Emma has her mother's healer heart. When someone needs help, she cannot turn away." Edgar stared into the fire. "I should not have let her go alone, though. That was my mistake. We are quite a pair, taking all the blame." Ryder tried to smile but could not quite manage it. "Emma would probably tell us both we are being ridiculous. She would. My daughter does not have patience for self-pity." Edgar's voice was fond despite his worry. "Sheriff, tell me true, do you really love her with everything I have?" Ryder had no hesitation answering. "I fought it because I thought it was impossible, thought I could not give her what she deserved. But Edgar, she is the first person who has made me want to try, who has made me want to be better than I am." "Good. Because if we get her back safe, I am holding you to your word about marrying her properly." Edgar's expression was serious. "Emma deserves a man who will commit to her fully, who will make her his priority." "She will have that, I swear it." Ryder meant every word. If they found Emma safe, he would never let her go. He would find a way to make their life together work, no matter what obstacles stood in their path. Dawn broke gray and cold, but the storm had finally blown itself out. Ryder and Edgar were out the door before the sun fully rose, gathering the search parties again. In the clear morning light, they set out toward the Rockingham, following the route Emma and Tommy would have taken. They had been searching for about an hour when one of the ranch hands shouted, "There!" "I see smoke." Ryder's heart leaped. Smoke meant fire, and fire meant someone was alive. They changed direction, pushing through the deep snow toward the thin trail of gray rising in the distance. The old line shack came into view, and Ryder felt such overwhelming relief he nearly fell to his knees. He reached the door first, throwing it open. Inside, Emma and Tommy huddled near a dying fire, both looking cold and tired but blessedly alive. Emma's head jerked up at the sound of the door and her eyes went wide. "Ryder!" She stumbled to her feet and threw herself into his arms. Ryder caught her, holding her so tight he probably hurt her, but he could not make himself let go. "You are safe. Thank God you are safe." He buried his face in her hair, breathing in the scent of her mixed with wood smoke and snow. "We got lost in the storm. Tommy found this shack and we holed up for the night." Emma was talking fast, her words tumbling over each other. "I knew you would be worried. I am so sorry. Do not apologize. You did everything right. You survived." Ryder pulled back just enough to look at her, to check her face and hands for frostbite. She was cold but seemed uninjured. Edgar pushed into the shack, his face crumpling with relief when he saw Emma. "Daughter!" Emma pulled away from Ryder to hug her father, and Ryder let her go reluctantly. The other searchers crowded around Tommy, checking on him and giving him grief for getting lost. The atmosphere was celebratory, everyone giddy with relief and exhaustion. They made their way back to Pino's Altos slowly, the horses struggling through the deep snow. Ryder kept Emma close, unwilling to let her out of his sight. She rode with him, her smaller frame fitting perfectly in front of his saddle, his arms around her keeping her warm. He could feel her trembling, whether from cold or reaction or both, and he held her tighter. "I was terrified," he admitted quietly, his lips near her ear. "When you did not come back and the storm hit, I thought I might lose you before we ever really got started." "I was scared too," Emma confessed, "but I kept thinking about you, about our plans, and that gave me hope. I knew you would come for me. Always. No matter what, I will always come for you." Ryder meant it with every fiber of his being. When they finally reached town, half the population seemed to be waiting anxiously. News of Emma's disappearance had spread, and people cheered when they saw the search party returning with Emma and Tommy safe. Ryder helped Emma down from the horse, steadying her when her cold, stiffened legs threatened to give out. "Inside now. You need to warm up properly and get checked over." Ryder was in full protective mode, and Emma seemed content to let him fuss over her. Back in the shop, with the fire built high and Emma wrapped in blankets with hot coffee in her hands, the reality of how close she had come to dying began to sink in. Her hands shook as she raised the cup to her lips, and Ryder saw tears tracking down her cheeks. "It is all right now. You are safe." He sat beside her, pulling her against his side. When we were out there, lost in all that white, I thought I might never see you again. Never get to move to Silver City, never get to build a life with you." Emma's voice broke. "It made me realize how precious this is, what we have, how easily it could be taken away. I know. I spent the whole night thinking the same thing." Ryder kissed the top of her head. "Emma, I do not want to waste any more time. Marry me, not someday, not eventually, soon. As soon as we can arrange it." Emma looked up at him, her eyes wide. "You want to marry me soon? I want to marry you yesterday. I want to make you legally, officially mine so the whole world knows you are not going anywhere." Ryder cupped her face gently. "I know it is fast, I know people will talk, but I do not care. Life is too short and too uncertain to play it safe." "Yes." Emma did not hesitate. "Yes, I will marry you soon, tomorrow if we can manage it." Edgar, who had been giving them privacy across the room, cleared his throat. "About that, Preacher Wilson is in town. He could do a ceremony any time." "Then let us do it in 2 days," Ryder said, looking at Edgar. "That gives us time to arrange things properly, to make it something special for Emma." 2 days, Emma repeated, wonder in her voice. "In 2 days I will be Emma Quinn." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. The whole town seemed to get involved in preparing for the wedding. The women brought food for a reception. The men cleaned up the church. Children made decorations from whatever they could find. Emma had never expected such an outpouring of support, but Pino's Altos was a close-knit community, and a wedding was cause for celebration. Emma had nothing fancy to wear, but one of the older women in town had saved her own wedding dress from years ago. She brought it to Emma, insisting she take it. The dress was simple but beautiful, white linen with delicate embroidery at the collar and cuffs. When Emma tried it on, it fit as if it had been made for her. The morning of the wedding, Emma woke with butterflies in her stomach. This was really happening. In a few hours she would be married to a man she had known less than 2 weeks. It should feel rushed, crazy even. But it felt right. Her father came to her room as she was getting ready, looking handsome in his best suit. "You are beautiful, daughter. Your mother would be so proud. I wish she could be here." Emma felt tears threatening but forced them back. She did not want to ruin her face before the ceremony. "She is here in her way, I feel her today, giving us her blessing." Edgar took Emma's hands. "Are you absolutely certain about this? If you have any doubts, it is not too late to wait." "I have no doubts, Papa, I love him. And I know this is fast, but sometimes you just know." Emma squeezed her father's hands. "Are you all right with this? With me leaving?" "I am all right with you being happy. That is all I have ever wanted." Edgar pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of her dress. "Now, let us get you married before that sheriff of yours wears a hole in the church floor from pacing." The church was packed when they arrived. It seemed like everyone in Pino's Altos had turned out for the wedding. Emma walked down the aisle on her father's arm, but her eyes were only for Ryder. He stood at the front, looking nervous and handsome in a new black suit. When he saw her, his face lit up with such joy that Emma felt her own smile grow impossibly wide. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. Preacher Wilson spoke about love and commitment, about the sacred bond of marriage. Ryder and Emma exchanged vows, their voices steady despite the emotion running high. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Ryder kissed Emma thoroughly, to the cheers and whistles of the congregation. The reception afterward was raucous and joyful, with plenty of food and dancing despite the cold. Emma danced with her father, with Ryder, with half the men in town. She felt like she was floating, like none of this could be real. But Ryder's hand in hers was solid and warm, anchoring her to this wonderful reality. As evening approached, people began to drift home. Edgar had arranged for Ryder and Emma to spend their wedding night in a small guest room above the general store, giving them privacy while he stayed in the shop. It was not fancy, but to Emma it might as well have been a palace. Ryder carried her over the threshold, both of them laughing at the old tradition. He set her down gently, and suddenly the laughter faded as they looked at each other. Husband and wife. It felt momentous and terrifying and absolutely perfect. "I cannot believe you are mine," Ryder said softly, reaching up to remove the pins from her hair. The dark waves tumbled down around her shoulders, and he ran his fingers through them reverently. "I do not know what I did to deserve you, Emma Quinn, but I swear I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy." "You already are worthy." Emma reached up to loosen his tie, her hands trembling slightly. "And I am yours completely, for always." What followed was tender and passionate, a joining of two souls as much as two bodies. Ryder was careful with her, patient, teaching her pleasures she had never imagined. Emma gave herself to him completely, holding nothing back, and in his arms she felt cherished and safe and loved beyond measure. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the narrow bed, talking in quiet voices about everything and nothing. Emma traced the scars on Ryder's chest, old wounds from his years as a lawman, while he played with her hair. "When do we leave for Silver City?" Emma asked. "Day after tomorrow, if you are ready. I sent word that I need a few more days before returning. They can spare me a bit longer." Ryder kissed her forehead. "But if you need more time to prepare to say goodbye, we can wait." "I am ready. I have said my goodbyes. Now I am ready to start our new life." Emma snuggled closer, content in a way she had never been before. They spent the next day preparing for the journey and making final arrangements. Edgar had found a young man named Peter to help in the shop, someone with potential if not quite Emma's skill yet. Emma packed her belongings, which were not many, and tried not to cry as she walked through the shop one last time. "You can always come back and visit," her father reminded her. "Silver City is not the end of the earth. I expect to see you and that husband of yours regularly." "We will come back, Papa, I promise." Emma hugged him fiercely. "And you have to come visit us too. You cannot just hide away in this shop forever. We will see. Maybe I will surprise you and show up on your doorstep one day." Edgar smiled, but Emma could see the sadness in his eyes. She was his only child, and now she was leaving. It had to hurt, even if he supported her decision. The morning of their departure, half the town turned out to see them off despite the early hour. Emma said her final goodbyes, accepting well wishes and hugs and advice. When she mounted her horse beside Ryder, ready to ride out of Pinot's Altos toward her new life, she felt a pang of nostalgia for all she was leaving behind. But then Ryder reached over and took her hand, and Emma looked ahead instead of back. The future was there, bright with possibility, and she was ready to meet it head-on. The ride to Silver City took 3 days, following well-traveled roads through stunning mountain scenery. At night, they stayed in small inns or roadside camps, and Ryder introduced Emma to aspects of his world she had never experienced. He taught her to shoot his spare pistol, to read trails and tracks, to move quietly through the wilderness. Emma absorbed it all eagerly, feeling herself change and grow with each passing mile. Silver City was larger than Pinot's Altos, a proper town with multiple streets and substantial buildings. Ryder's small house was on the edge of town, a simple 2-room structure that he admitted he rarely spent time in. But Emma saw potential in it immediately. "We can fix it up, make it a real home," she said, walking through the dusty space. "It just needs some attention and care." "It needs you," Ryder corrected, pulling her close. "I have been existing here, not living. You are going to change that." Over the following weeks, Emma did just that. She cleaned and decorated, planted a small garden despite the rocky soil, made curtains and bought furniture. She found work at a dressmaker's shop, her skills with leather translating well to fabric. The pay was modest, but it gave her something to do during the long days when Ryder was working, and Ryder did work long hours. Emma had understood that intellectually, but the reality was harder than she expected. There were nights he did not come home at all, staying out on patrol or investigation. There were days he left before dawn and returned after midnight, exhausted and silent. Emma learned to be patient, to have dinner waiting whenever he made it home, to accept that his job demanded pieces of him she could never have. But the times they were together made up for the separations. Ryder was attentive and loving, always making sure Emma knew she was his priority even when duty called him away. They talked about everything, learning each other's histories and dreams. They made love with a passion that never diminished. They built a life together, piece by piece, day by day. Spring came to Silver City, bringing warmer weather and green growth. Emma's garden flourished, and she made friends with the other women in town. She wrote to her father regularly, long letters detailing her new life. Edgar wrote back with news from Pino's Altos, including that Margaret Delaney had been convicted and sentenced to prison, and her brothers had been captured trying to flee to Mexico. On a warm evening in May, about 3 months after they had married, Emma waited for Ryder with special news. When he walked in, tired from a long day breaking up a saloon fight, she greeted him with unusual excitement. "Sit down, I have something to tell you." Emma guided him to their small table. "What is it? You look like you are about to burst." Ryder smiled, some of his fatigue lifting at her obvious joy. "I went to see Doc Reynolds today." Emma took his hands. "Ryder, I am pregnant. We are going to have a baby." Ryder's expression went through several rapid changes: shock, disbelief, then pure joy. "A baby, truly, truly." "Doc says I am about 8 weeks along, which means the baby should arrive in late November or early December." Emma was grinning so hard her face hurt. Ryder let out a whoop of joy and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around before carefully setting her down. "We are having a baby." "Emma, we are going to be parents." "Are you happy?" Emma asked, though she could clearly see he was. Happy does not begin to cover it. Terrified, excited, overwhelmed, blessed, all of it. Ryder cupped her face. "Thank you. Thank you for taking a chance on me, for building this life with me, for giving me more than I ever dreamed I could have." That night, they talked for hours about the future, about names and plans and how they would manage with a child. Ryder vowed to cut back his hours where possible, to be present for his family. Emma assured him she knew his job was important, but that she expected him to prioritize them when he could. The months of pregnancy passed swiftly. Emma's body changed, her curves growing more pronounced as the baby developed. She found she loved being pregnant, loved the feeling of life growing inside her. Ryder was endlessly fascinated by her changing form, his hands often resting on her swelling belly, talking to the baby in soft tones. In September, Edgar came to visit, staying for 2 weeks. He was delighted by the news of his impending grandchild, and he and Ryder bonded over building a cradle for the baby. Emma felt complete, surrounded by the 2 men she loved most in the world. "You look happy, daughter," Edgar said one evening as they sat on the small porch watching the sunset. "Truly happy." "I am, Papa. I know it has not been easy with Ryder gone so much, but it is worth it. We are building something good here." Emma rested her hands on her belly, feeling the baby kick. "I have everything I ever wanted. Your mother would be so proud of you, of the woman you have become, of the risks you were willing to take." Edgar took her hand. "I am proud of you too, Emma, so very proud." When Edgar left to return to Pino's Altos, Emma cried despite her happiness. But she knew he needed to get back to his shop and his life, just as she needed to continue building hers here. November arrived with unseasonable warmth, and Emma's baby decided to make an early appearance. Her labor started in the middle of the night, and Ryder rode frantically through town to fetch the midwife. Emma labored through the day and into the evening, Ryder holding her hand and wiping her brow, murmuring encouragements. As the sun set on a beautiful November evening, Emma gave birth to a healthy baby boy. When the midwife placed